Welcome back to the Playeasy Warmup, the podcast where we dive into the stories, people, and passion driving the sporting event and tourism industry forward. I'm your host, Kerri Shields. Today, we're stepping into the world of grit, community, and serious strength with someone who's redefining what it means to compete. Ryan Grondin, founder of 98% Arm Wrestling. What started as a passion has turned into a full-blown movement, bringing raw electric energy to tables across the country. We talk about how Ryan got hooked on the sport, how 98% Arm Wrestling has built such a loyal and fast-growing community, and what it really takes to step up to the table, both physically and mentally. Plus, how he's using tools like Playeasy to streamline events and bring arm wrestling to new destinations nationwide. Whether you're an athlete, organizer, or just curious about the rise of this underground sport, this episode's got something for you. I hope you enjoy. Nothing brings people together like sports, and no place brings people together like the beach, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There, you'll find first-class facilities and an experienced planning team that will make sure your sporting or esports event goes off without a hitch. And when the games end, the real play begins. With 60 miles of endless activities and entertainment, it's a guaranteed win for all ages. That's why you can't beat the beach. Start planning at myrtlebeachsports.com. Ryan, welcome to the Playeasy Warmup podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I am very excited to learn about the sport of arm wrestling today, and I'm also always excited to have a local. We are both, well, you are living in Delaware County. I am from Delaware County, and so the Philadelphia area always has a strong connection. So very happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah. Awesome. So I guess to start off, for those who don't know, what is 98% arm wrestling and how did it all begin?
So the theme, what 98 means, where the 98 number came from, was basically in any sport, you have the top elite people of that sport that are like the pros, and the rest of us that play that sport are the other 98%. That's our theme. Whether that number is accurate or not, but that's kind of what we just decided to go with. So like, we're the ones that like play the sport and are training and trying to get to that 2%, which is the majority of people that play sports. So that was kind of our theme going into 98.
Love it.
And how it started was just some conversations at a Philly practice. There are arm wrestling practices all over the country that people don't even know exist. But we're just talking at practice that going to some of the tournaments was intimidating for the lower level guys because it's mostly catered to like the top level pros. So we were like, what if we start something that's more like for us? And then we did it. And because there's a majority of the 98%ers, it just grew really, really fast. So that's kind of how it happened.
I love it. And what drew you to arm wrestling in the first place? Was there a moment that really got you hooked on the sport?
I'm probably going to show my age now, but the movie Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone was like an arm wrestling movie in the 80s that a lot of guys my age watched. And then just guys arm wrestling at the lunch table in school, stuff like that. Kind of always liked it. And then I didn't even know there were practices till much later in life. And then someone was like, you should come check out this practice. And I'm like, arm wrestling? And then, I was like, I'll come check it out. And then you just get hooked. Like the community is what really pulls you in.
Yeah. And that has been a common theme on this podcast. We've had everyone from fishing to cheer and dance to track and field, and community has been the common theme in all of the sports. So I'm always happy to hear that come up when describing the sport. And so how much of arm wrestling is strength versus technique?
Oh, man. So when you first start and you learn some technique, you're probably going to beat all your friends for a while. The ones that don't arm wrestle. Now, in arm wrestling itself, the technique will get you pretty far, but then to start to level up, you need the strength to kind of go with it. But a lot of times, technique will really get you out of a jam or get you some wins just from knowing a little bit more than your opponent. But eventually, strength starts to play a bigger part as you get more elite and further into it.
Could you give everyone an idea of the structure of 98 Wrestling? So you run local events and then you have one big event every year. And who is participating in those events?
So we started out just local, you know, Delaware County, Bucks County, stuff like that, the greater Philadelphia area doing small tournaments. And then we teamed up with, I met a woman named Sue Fisher. She's been arm wrestling like 30 plus years. So she used to throw a tournament called Winter Blast, and she was like, hey, I'd love to bring it back, you know, because it hadn't been around for, you know, however many years. So we teamed up and brought it back, and now it's become the biggest tournament in the country. And then recently, someone asked me if we would franchise 98. I was like, no. And then like a month went by, and I thought, why not? So we set up this franchise package thinking, you know, who knows what's going to happen. And 5 people joined up in like the first week. So now 98's all over the country, which is kind of cool.
For actually, I don't even know what goes into franchising an organization across the country.
I guess it's probably slightly different with arm wrestling because it's just a sport and not like a major corporation or something. But basically, there's other promoters around the country that throw tournaments and stuff like that. So now they're throwing their tournaments under the 98 banner. And, you know, so now 98 is actually having tournaments all over the country under this brand.
Awesome. So could you give an idea of where in the country that is, and maybe where is there a location that you're looking to grow?
So we have Georgia, we have North Carolina, we have Maryland, we have Arizona, Nevada, and California and Utah are one region. Like multiple people joined into that franchise. And then we're about to have Canada, and we're about to have New Mexico.
Wow. That was a quick growth. That's awesome. And I guess historically, when you think of who's competing in arm wrestling, I think you think of a strong male. But seeing some of the competitions that you have people from all age ranges, girls, guys, all competing. Could you give an idea of just the full breakdown for your events?
Yeah, basically, like there's brackets. So we have weight classes. So like a 150-pound guy is not going to go against someone my size. So, you know, they're safe, you know.
Yeah.
But it's more for safety because, you know, there are injuries, like people tear things and things like that, or, you know, the occasional arm break. But usually we use certified refs. So if someone gets into like a dangerous position, they'll stop it so that, you know, nobody gets hurt. But, so we have kids divisions, which usually with kids it's tough because you don't know what the turnout's going to be. So, you know, when they show up, we kind of match them up, weight and age and gender and things like that. And then we have a novice division, which is like people like their first time on an arm wrestling table. Then we have amateurs, which is like the majority of, you know, the beginner people, a couple of years in, you know. Then we have, at our big tournament, we have a semi-pro division that we just started throwing in. But generally, it goes from amateur to pro. Then there's masters and grandmasters. I mean, we have guys on our team that are 80 years old still arm wrestling and competing. So, I mean, we have like 5-year-old kids all the way up to 80-year-old men. Like, you know, so the demographic that we cover is huge. We recently are working with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts to try to get something going with them to get more kids involved. So, you know, we'll see how that goes.
That's great. And then from a location perspective, so I know you mentioned you run those local events and then more of that big national competition. So what do you need from a venue for those local events to take place?
Okay. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a hotel, but it is very convenient to have a hotel on site. This is for the bigger events. So for the bigger events, hotel is nice. Like usually they have like a ballroom, something like that we can use. And food and alcohol, food and drinks, something that they can, because once they weigh in, a lot of them cut weight. So as soon as they weigh in, they want to eat and drink and rehydrate and, bulk back up. So food and alcohol, like if you're a venue and, most arm wrestling tournaments are on Saturdays and they weigh in around like anywhere from 9 to like 11:30, and the tournaments usually start at 1. So if you're a venue, you can expect people to eat lunch there at least. And then depending on how long or how big the tournament is, they're probably going to eat dinner there too. So the venues make their money from that, from all the food and drinks.
So you're saying for an ideal scenario, it would be in a hotel, in a ballroom of any size, as long as they are ready to feed and provide drinks for the event.
Now, smaller tournaments, you can do them like we do them in breweries that have a space. We've done them in, restaurant bars that have like a little stage for like a band, stuff like that. Okay. And we try to, because we're during the day, they can still book their band in the evening, and we're out of there before. So they're actually making money in their off hours that aren't as busy as when the band gets there and stuff like that.
And I know your last big event took place in Valley Forge at the Valley Forge Casino, and you partnered with Valley Forge Sports Tourism, which they are great partners of ours, hosting our first conference this summer. So we're really looking forward to that. But
that's awesome.
They gave me kind of an idea of what your event was like, how exciting it was, and they were shocked by how many people and the excitement around your events. Could you describe, I guess, what is that event like the energy, the people, and everything around it?
So this one was kind of unique because we partnered up with another organization called Arm Gods that are from the UK and Ireland. So they flew in a whole bunch of UK athletes to go against our USA athletes. So it was like a clash of, USA versus them, which is why we did it at Valley Forge, because it was kind of like that Revolutionary War theme being in Valley Forge. So, we wanted to send the Brits packing back home. But so Friday night, we did those one-on-one matches. They call them super matches. So, we had 13 Americans against 13 Brits just go at it, which was really cool. And then Saturday was Winter Blast, which we had 500 entries this year. So that makes that the biggest tournament in the country for a one-day tournament. So that was fun. But we had like 4 or 5 tables running all at once, arm wrestling tables, and we have announcers announcing names, do the brackets to get them up there, all by weight class and stuff like that. So they have to kind of pay attention to when they're up, because their names get called and stuff. So, but it was that was an exciting one. That was our biggest one yet. So
that's great. And is that going to be an annual event, or are you looking to move cities?
Yeah, we do Winter Blast annually, always in the greater Philadelphia area. Like this one was at Valley Forge. The year before we were up in Bucks County in Langhorne. That's where our last one was at a hotel there.
That's great. And so how do you get the word out about these events? I know that you guys utilize social media a lot. I know you have your own podcast. How do you get people excited about these events?
Facebook, mostly. Facebook. Most arm wrestlers are on Facebook. So I did something that most people say is crazy, but I made a 98 arm wrestling Facebook group in every state. The reasoning for that was to create a network for us so that, say you're throwing a tournament in New Hampshire, there are a lot of Facebook groups that are just like arm wrestling discussion or arm wrestling, So when you post in there, you don't really know who's seeing it. But now that we have the state groups, if you post in New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maine, you're targeting the demographic of arm wrestlers that are most likely to go to that tournament. And you know they're seeing it because if they're in that group, they most likely live in that state. Where before, you don't really know, you wouldn't really know who was seeing it because there's people in all those groups from all over the country. So there's no point in someone from California seeing your small tournament in New Hampshire. They're probably not going to go to it. So we created this as a tool really for all promoters to use, and it's been working really good.
Yeah. And do you think that has fueled your growth? I mean, especially as you are starting to franchise across?
Because now that we're franchising, so if we have a franchise in Georgia, so now we've made them the admin of the 98 Arm Wrestling Facebook group so that they can add people from that area. So every time we get a franchise, we throw on a bunch of guys from that area as an admin in the group so they can help us add people from that area because, we don't know everybody, but they do in their specific areas.
And so as you look ahead, what do you think has also fueled the growth in sports, and what sets 98 Arm Wrestling apart from other arm wrestling organizations?
I think mostly the theme, like catering to the general population of the sport rather than just the elite guys. Because there's plenty of organizations that just cater to the elites. Like, for instance, East versus West. It's only like the top level guys in the United States or North America versus the guys that are from the East. So, and there's a bunch of organizations like that, or some just do like cash payouts only for the elite guys. So the rest of us, now have something that we've all kind of adopted, and now like when people in the arm wrestling world talk about arm wrestlers, they've kind of adopted our concept and they refer to like the elites as the 2%ers. Like, oh, he's a 2%er, I'm a 98%er, and they've kind of adopted our theme. So it's kind of cool to hear that.
That's great. And so what kind of impact are you hoping to make on the sport or the athletes that you work with?
So one, our main goal is to get more people into the sport and get more eyes on the sport, like getting kids into it and things like that so that the sport has a future. And the second thing is creating a path for each athlete. Like, so we have our tournaments, and we have Winter Blast. Winter Blast is the biggest tournament in the country. So when we started something called Table Trauma, which is super matches for like, the average, any 98%er to do super matches. And if they win there, then they could get an opportunity at Winter Blast to be on a card there on a super match, which is like a step up. So we're trying to create a path and a ladder for each athlete to follow and live feed it. And, that way they kind of have a story of their history in arm wrestling, of how they grew to get to that top level throughout the 98%. So that's kind of our plan, and then we're launching like a women's league, stuff like that, a youth league. So we have a lot going on right now.
No, it's great to hear, and any way to get kids involved and outside is a great thing. And so, I guess, what is your approach to getting more kids involved in the sport?
Well, I have a lot of conversations going on with the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of America to try to. We thought it would be cool if we could set it up so that, if a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout came and competed, maybe it could be something that's points towards a badge, something like that. But in general, just having them come out to a tournament, or maybe we bring a table to one of their meetings and have, a couple minutes, they can try it out, check out the table, things like that, just to get people interested. And a lot of younger people don't know about the sport, but yeah, to get their eyes on it and try to get them to come out with their parents and maybe get their parents into it,
We have had a few sports where it's the kids, the parents, and sometimes the grandparents all competing in the same sport. So it's really a family affair. And so You mentioned that potential partnership. What is your approach to partnerships to help you grow your organization?
I have no idea because
Yeah.
the minute we just kind of mentioned that we were doing this, like people signed up immediately, and we were like not quite ready yet. So we had to like really like roll it out fast. So now things have calmed down, and we kind of stopped talking about it too much on social media, so that we can get everybody that are already signed up set up. And but we're gonna start having monthly meetings, and the goal is to have each franchise help each other, so that now maybe Winter Blast might get people nationally. I mean, we already do, but now it might be that next level of having people come from each franchise area, making it more like a national style tournament.
Well, you're a true entrepreneur, growing growing a business, and I accidentally, but I do think our core listeners for this podcast are our destinations, whose job is to bring in events like yours to create that economic impact within their city, and so just the room for opportunity and growth for a sport that not a lot of whole people, not a lot of people know about, but a lot of people do have the space to host an event like yours. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and so I'm sure you've started to think about this, but where do you see the sport of arm wrestling 5, 10 years from now?
I think it'll become more mainstream because already like the top guys that are like the elites, like East versus West, are starting to get like live streamed, and they're starting to be on like streaming networks. Not quite like Netflix, but like some of the smaller ones, ESPN, stuff like that, are starting to get interested.
Mhm.
And oddly enough, in India, they have the Pro Panja League, and there it's huge. Like they're sponsored by like Sony and all these huge corporations there, and they have millions of viewers. And in America, it's like a drop in the bucket compared to what they got going on out there. It's more popular in most other countries, like the Russian countries, things like that. Like their governments like pay them to be athletes in arm wrestling. They have arm wrestling in school as like an elective, where here it's like very, very infantile in comparison to what all the other countries are doing. It's kind of interesting how that is.
Yeah. And is there a memory or something that stands out from one of your events of someone that maybe wasn't the strongest, but won in an unexpected way?
Well, actually, just recently, um, a kid named Logan Bittinger, he went to a tournament down in Virginia, and I happened to go down to it. And the best arm wrestler in North America was there, Devin Larrett, and this kid snuck a pin on him, and like he just because Devin is so good that he can arm wrestle all day in the background. Everybody else is like saving their energy, and he's like arm wrestling everybody that wants to meet him, signing autographs. And maybe he underestimated Logan a little bit and just got up there and kind of and Logan just is really fast and explosive, and he's newish to the sport, and he just hit really fast, and Devin was like, "Oh, you little whatever." He's like, "You got one in on me." So he definitely snuck one in on him, which was awesome to see because Logan was so excited, but but then the community attacks him and says like that doesn't count. He wasn't. He'd been pulling for however long, and they try to like discredit the pin because it's all like the fanboys.
I'm played basketball my whole life, so it would be similar as if someone were to challenge me to a one-on-one game on or a shooting competition on the offside, and then trying to discredit.
Right.
That's
And like
hilarious.
like they're like, "Oh, you only beat me because my wrist has been injured lately." After they accept the match.
Yeah. And how long does a typical match last? And maybe what is the longest one you've ever seen?
Usually they're I mean, in a tournament it varies because there's all different levels, but most of the time it's seconds. A few seconds, 10 seconds. Now the long ones are like if you start hitting a minute or two, I mean that's just insane. It takes a lot out of you to go that long. And so yeah, usually it's like a quick flash pin or a little bit back and forth, and then someone gets it. But I'd say under a minute is the norm.
Okay.
But you start going over a minute, and that's kind of everybody's
Can't
watching.
imagine. Yeah. So, for someone who was looking to enter their first event, what is a piece of advice that you would give to that person?
I would say go to a practice first. Hit a practice, because just in a half hour or an hour practice, you're going to learn so much that you'll probably, the first thing they teach you is safety. Keeping your arm in, looking at your hand. Because, when you start pinning, if your arm goes out here, that's dangerous. You can get a spiral fracture or tear something. So you'll hear a lot of veterans telling you guys, look at your hand, which is basically making them look like that so they stay safe as they, try to pin and stuff like that. But I'd say go to a practice, because you're going to learn how to be safe. You're going to learn some pointers, some technique. And then, you go in a novice division with other people that are brand new. If they haven't been to a practice, you already have an edge over them.
Yeah. And for a person who wants to get involved in going to their first practice, how would you suggest them doing so?
There's a lot of ways. There's a website called armfighter.com, which lists most practices across the country. And then our 98 group, if you join our main group, 98 Arm Wrestling, on Facebook, all you have to do is post in there and say where you're from and you're looking for a practice, and you'll get 1,000 people telling you where to go, who to talk to. So, yeah, probably that.
Great. And so just as clearly you've been on a journey that's taken a life of its own the course of the last few years. So what has been the biggest lesson you've learned on that journey?
Oh, boy. Probably the biggest lesson is in every sport you get haters. So the more successful things go, people hate on it, just ignore them. Because I used to be the type that was like, oh, this guy's hating me, I got to say something on social media. That does not help whatsoever. Just ignore them and respond with more successes. Make your tournament successful and let that do the talking instead of you arguing with people on social media.
I love that. Keep the eye on the prize.
Yeah.
And so as we look ahead to the rest of the year, what are you most looking forward to for 98 Wrestling?
I'm excited to see all these franchises start to do their thing and see how it develops with that. And obviously, Winter Blast, we're always looking to grow Winter Blast. We're already planning our next one. So that's always, no joke, the minute Winter Blast is done, we start planning the next one like that next week, because that's our big one, and a lot of moving parts with that. We're always looking for vendors that might be interested in coming to Winter Blast and setting up a table and selling whatever they have, things like that, just so it's more exciting for people that are there. And then one of the most difficult parts is finding sponsors. So I will say this, if you're a sponsor and you want to sponsor arm wrestling, since it's so difficult to find sponsors, they will bend over backwards for you and do whatever they can to get you out there and promote you properly. So definitely I'd say arm wrestling promoters will really take care of sponsors above and beyond probably the average sport, because it is hard to get sponsors.
Great. Yeah, that's great. So I guess just to wrap us up, where can people get in touch with you if they want to connect, learn more about 98 Arm Wrestling, or be involved in one of your events?
Probably Facebook, most likely. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, all as 98 Arm Wrestling. So any of those groups, message us, whatever. anything on there, it'll all come to me anyway. So then I can direct you to whatever practice or person that you need to talk to get involved.
Great. Well, Ryan, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and learn more about the sport of arm wrestling. Yeah, thank you for being here and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank
Of
you.
course. Thanks, everyone. Until next time. See you later.